Hi, Christy.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had, we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it the why and the buy.
All right.
Okay, welcome back, everyone, to the Why and the Buy podcast. We thank you so much for joining us. This is episode number 12. That's very exciting for us. My name is Christie Walters. I'm joined here, as always, by Jeff Bajorek. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Hi, Christy. How are you? 12 episodes?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Come on. Can't be 12 episodes. We've only been doing this for like a year, it seems.
I know, right? We've been having these conversations for a year anyway. So, Jeff, we have a very exciting guest with us today. Would you like to do the honors and introduce her for us?
I am truly honored, Christy, and especially speaking of conversations. You and I started this podcast because of some of the conversations that we have had, and I knew that I had to have Liz Wendling on our podcast because of some of the conversations she and I have had. Liz is a wonderfully passionate speaker, coach, consultant, go-to gal for entrepreneurs, especially attorneys. And I know that she's written 4 books, many of them aimed at women entrepreneurs and attorneys, which is a very interesting subspecialty within the business world. And there are a lot of sacred cows that we all hold dear. Christy, you and I have talked about that before, but I wanted to bring Liz on today because she and I have specifically spoken about how a lot of people in business think they can run a business without selling, because sales is a 4-letter word to a lot of people. Well, anybody smart enough to sell can count, and sales is a 5-letter word, so we got to get off on the right foot to start, and I'm glad to introduce to the entire audience the unflappable Liz Wendling. Liz, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff and Christy.
Excellent. So, Liz, I'm really excited to have you on the call, and you and I have not had a chance to meet prior to the recording today. Mm-hmm. And but I did take a chance and went out to your website. I listened to a couple of your videos. Those of you who haven't had a chance to listen to Liz previously, please go check out her website. She has some very interesting tips and tricks for entrepreneurs and salespeople alike, because everybody is selling something, right?
Yep.
So one of the things that I love about your material, and it stuck out to me, was your concept of magnetizing the marketing message. And I was really interested to hear a little bit more about what you mean when you talk about magnetizing your marketing message.
Well, just like a magnet, we want to be able to attract people to us. And if we're not using the right language or we don't have the right approach, we're actually repelling people. And what I find now is that so many entrepreneurs, business owners, attorneys, it doesn't matter what you sell, what industry you're in, everyone is starting to sound alike. Everyone is saying a lot of the same words and using the same phrases, leaving the same messages, sending the same emails. So how can we differentiate ourselves if we're saying the same exact thing? You cannot be a magnet if what you're doing is repelling people versus attracting people. So how do you take what you're currently doing and magnetize that by changing your language, changing your approach, changing who you are when you're delivering your message or sending an email or even writing on your website or writing an article?
I think that most people start to sound the same because they're afraid to sound different.
That's right.
And I think...
And everyone else says it this way, so I should too.
So follow the herd and refuse to stand out. And that is not marketing, right? I've seen it so many times, and even with the companies and the clients that I work with, their marketing messages, their shiny pieces of paper and their brochures and their websites, all they do is establish the fact that they are exactly like their competitors. Yep. And then when they go to sell, they regurgitate that message that's right on their website. So for one, the copy on your website is boring. It's really non-differentiating at all. Right. And then secondly, if they read the copy on your website or your brochure, then why, if you're just going to regurgitate it, why do they need you at all?
That's
and
right.
I think it comes back to this whole idea that people are afraid to sell. And why, in your opinion, Liz, do you think people are afraid to sell?
Based on experience and just what people tell me is they have a negative mindset around what selling actually means. To them, if you're good at selling or you take sales classes, then that means that you're going to be good at manipulating and convincing and controlling people. And that if you're good at selling, it means you don't take no for an answer and you can overcome every objection. And they see selling as doing something to someone or forcing themselves onto someone. And yeah, if it was still 1972, then that mindset would hold up. But let's fast forward many decades, and selling is what you make selling. So if you think that's what selling is, then you're going to show up that way. And if you think it's about controlling and manipulating people, you're doing it wrong. That's what I tell people. If you don't like to sell, it's because you're not doing it right.
Right.
And selling truly is just exchanging money for a product or service or an idea or a talent or a skill or a passion. Someone is handing you money for something that you possess. That's all it is. No different than going to get a crown in your mouth from the dentist or going to get a new transmission or an oil change or a new website. You're handing someone money and exchanging it from a product or service or whatever is being exchanged for that. That's all it is. And we can complicate the crap out of it even more if we'd like to, but it doesn't have to be that way.
I think most people end up complicating the crap out of it, right? I mean, I think that is part of it. We overthink it all the time, yet we interact with people on a daily basis, and you're selling an idea or a thought, or you're convincing your friends to go to the restaurant that you want to choose, or you're convincing your child to go and do something that they need to do. These are all things that are part of everyday life, but people don't view them the same way.
That's right. They wrap selling in this awful box and try to resist it at all costs. And I always tell people, good luck trying to stay in business without someone handing you money. Good luck at that. And you can avoid it until you drive your business into a ditch because you haven't closed a sale in 6 months, because you're afraid of the only thing that keeps you in business. The only thing. You can have a beautiful website, but if someone isn't paying you anything, all you have is a beautiful website and you're broke. So you have a choice. You could either hate it and go broke, or you can learn to like it and find a way to sell that honors not only just you, but also the other person or the parties involved. It's a two-way street. It's collaborative. And if you can figure out a way to do it where it honors who you are and really feels good on you, like a custom-made coat, then your business can flourish. But if you keep resisting it, you're headed for a ditch.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from Zig Ziglar, and I will completely destroy it, I'm sure, was that if you have a passion for a product or a service that you sell that you really believe is going to make someone else's life easier or better, you have a moral obligation to sell that product. Yeah. And it was interesting for me, especially in talking with a lot of my clients that struggle with that concept of manipulative salesperson. You have to flip the script, right? You have to flip what you're telling yourself about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis if you want it to come across differently to your client.
Right. And I find that the people who say, I don't want to be salesy, I don't want to be pushy, I don't want to look like a salesperson, those people look just like a salesperson.
Yes, right.
They're actually using outdated, old school techniques that no longer work. So the thing that they resist the most, they're actually being. And they don't realize that they have the opportunity to shift everything in their language and the way that they're coming across. But they think if they just say, I don't want to be salesy, then that covers it. No, it doesn't. If you don't want to be salesy, then you have to use language that doesn't make you sound salesy. You can't just declare it. You have to fix it too.
Do you think we have an Alec Baldwin problem when it comes to selling, or at least the perception of selling? I mean, go and it's the old Glengarry, Glen Ross movie, which I don't believe was meant to glorify salespeople. I don't believe that play was ever meant to glorify salespeople. I believe that is definitely satire, but most people will champion that movie, and especially those 4 minutes and 8 seconds or however long it is where Baldwin makes his appearance in that film. He's not even the worst guy in the film. You've got some other people who are kind of made out to look like dogs, the Alan Arkins, of that group who and then there's the Al Pacino who's just painting a great picture, but being about as dishonest as you possibly can be, right? And you've got Jack Lemmon lying to people, and you've got, it's every stereotype in the book, and the movie is just beholden by people as something that is the gold standard of selling. Right. Meanwhile, I think the real salespeople in the world today look at that and say, wow, I'm glad we don't do it like that anymore, but this is an interesting take. I mean, has that movie helped us or hurt us?
Oh, for sure hurt us. And I still think there are people out there that lie, that will tell you everything that you want to hear just to get the sale. There's always going to be those people out there. There's dishonest web designers, dentists. I mean, you name it. There's always going to be that. So I always say, that's how you want to be. If you want to be unethical and lie to people, then nothing I say will ever change what you're going to do. It's those people who don't want that are looking for something different, but they have to change their mindset first, that selling can be different once you wrap it in a different box, once you put it in a different container, and then figure out what you don't want to do, what doesn't work for you, and discover what does. The hard work is in the discovery. And then once you find something, you get to use it over and over and over for the life of your business and reap the rewards again and again. But too many people dig their heels in because there's work involved. There's work involved in discovering who you want to be as a human being when you meet a new client. There's real work. You've got to go deep to figure out, how do you want to come across? How do you really want to sound? What is the message and the impact that you want to leave on someone? And I think because there's more work involved than people want to do, they just call all selling bad, and then they don't have to work on it. That's like saying, I hate exercise, so I don't do it, so I'm going to just be fat. I mean, you can make a declaration that you suck at exercise, but at the same time, you're saying, I just don't want to be healthy. It takes too much darn work. I'm just going to stay chubby.
Well, what's interesting, too, is working with people.
I just channeled Jeffrey Gitomer there, by the way.
You did, a little bit.
Well, what's really interesting, though, when you frame it that way, when you frame it, you said earlier, when you're afraid of selling, you're afraid of the only thing that's keeping the doors of your business open. You ask people who say, I don't want to sell. You say, okay, how are you going to grow your business? You get a lot of long, uncomfortable pauses after that.
Yeah.
And then I think at that point, you get their attention. You get the entrepreneur's attention that a great idea, is not enough to do the work for you. That a better mousetrap does not necessarily mean that the world will beat a path to your door, like we were all told, right, growing up. And I think once you finally have their attention, what you can do is, what you said earlier, you can say, look, now how do you want to do it? Great, you don't want to sell because you think selling is this thing. Well, now that we're both on the same page that you have to do something to bring money in, right, how do you want that to look? And that's a question that nobody ever asks.
No.
And there are very few people who sell exactly the same way. There are a couple of people who had huge influences on me growing up, so to speak, in selling and in sales. And I don't sell the same way they do it because of that. And it comes down to that mindset. It comes down to your belief. It comes down to your comfort level. It comes down to different strengths and weaknesses. And
your personality.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There are things I've seen people walk into a room and say where I cannot believe they just went there. And it works. Right. Because they own it, right?
That's right.
And there are things that I will say vice versa. I'll get heads turning, and I'll get people, eyebrows raised, and I'll get people sitting back in their seats, and I'm like, what? I got your attention, right? Like, can we talk now? I mean, there's just so many different ways to do it, and that's what I don't think most people understand. I think that if you go and do a Google image search for salesman, you're going to find 5 photos that are a pretty good representation of what the public thinks of that particular word, and I don't know very many people who want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't willingly want to step into something that they already think is wrong. So why would they step into that? So I just won't do it at all and see what happens.
Not an option.
Not an option. Right. Or they think they could network their way to a business or do enough teleseminars or webinars to close business. But you still have to have that collaborative conversation about who you are, what you do, the value you provide. And you have to be able to speak to somebody about that, ask the right questions, and open up a conversation where someone sees that you're really in it, not just for the sale, but you're in it for the relationship as well. And with the right language, you can do that.
Yeah. And I think I love what you just said. You have to open up the right conversation. This is not about one individual pushing something on another. This is a collaborative effort. And I think that a lot of people who have that outdated mindset of what a salesperson looks like sees it as one doing to another as opposed to a collaborative piece. So I think that's huge. So I want to change the gears just slightly on this, and I'd like your take, Liz, on where you see technology playing into people who are looking to update their game. So, we talked a lot about having outdated language and maybe having an outdated approach to sales. Technology is so overwhelming for a lot of salespeople in different industries. And especially, I don't know that it matters what your age is really, but I'd love to get your take on where you see technology's role in the life of the salesperson today.
Oh, if I was standing up, my hands would be flapping all over the place. This is one of my favorite topics because I wrote an article called Technology is Killing Your Business. Because so many people hate to sell, they've taken to the internet. And what they do is they take their outdated approach, that I don't want to be salesy approach, and all they've done is turn it into a salesy email. Hi, my name is, this is what I do. I'm really great at that. I want to grab you for 15 minutes to have a cup of coffee. So they're taking an approach that's 40, 50 years old and hiding behind a computer and using an approach that doesn't work face-to-face, but they're trying it by technology. And then they claim, oh, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. I've tried LinkedIn. I've tried to connect with people and no one gets back to me. And then I say to them, well, tell me the message that you left. And it's typically something that sounds like it's an old school cold call turned into a new school email and sounds completely outdated. So people are hiding behind technology thinking that's how they'll close sales. They'll spend a fortune on, let's say they create a new info product, spend a fortune on it and think that doing a few videos and having a great landing page is going to be enough. You still have to have conversations with people. So online is great to get the online conversation started, but eventually you have to move it to an offline conversation, and you still need to know what it takes to inspire and motivate someone to listen to you and buy from you. So I tell people to step away from technology. It's good to use in conjunction with picking up the phone, sitting down and meeting with someone face-to-face or having a phone call. But you can't hide behind technology and think that is going to save your business. It's not. It's going to make it worse.
The social selling phenomenon is a great buzzword. It has created a lot of discussion, not only on social media, but off social media. And I think that it is, once again, a crutch for people who don't want to pick up the phone. It is a rallying cry for those who say that the older people just don't get it, and you're just a dinosaur. You can't embrace this new technology. Listen, it is a very meaningful way of connecting with people that you wouldn't otherwise be able to connect with based on geography or time zone or just whatever it is that you're trying to do. But ultimately, having some flashy videos and a landing page, like you said, spamming your professional network with quote-unquote value messages on a daily basis doesn't help. You've got to have that engagement. And selling is about that engagement. And most of the most prominent practitioners of social selling, and I've interacted with them, they're really great. And you know what? This is the interesting thing, and what very few people tend to call out. The best social sellers are really good sellers.
That's right.
All they're doing
whether
is
they're online or offline.
you're just utilizing the new tools and the new ways of reaching everybody. Social networks are still about networking, and it's a different means of that networking. And if you want to become a better social salesperson, then you should become a better salesperson. And you see, just because we can have technology that accomplishes our lead capturing statistics and who clicks on what and who does this, you still have to take those conversations offline and have them be more personal and engaging and get to a point where you have a real sales conversation. But I don't think that the pendulum ultimately resides at either end of the spectrum, though, right? You've got new tools with powerful amounts of information at your fingertips. Use them. But let's not forget the blocking and tackling, so to speak, of the actual skills and the actual process, because that's where all the money's still made.
Well, you still have to understand your audience, right? I mean, so if your audience primarily communicates in a social media fashion, then you have to be able to have a meaningful conversation with them on that medium. If they primarily communicate at networking events or trade shows or by email, you have to understand your audience enough to know where to take that conversation.
That's right.
I think that's part of the challenge, and you're right, Jeff. It's not right or wrong. It's just too much of anything is a bad thing, right?
That's right.
Moderation, people, right?
That's right. And trying different, sometimes even doing 2 different email campaigns. If you want to see which one works better, which one lands better, which one resonates with your audience, and the approach where one size fits all. You know, again, I keep saying we're not in 1972 anymore. It doesn't work that way. Our audience is different, and we need to be able to have those types of communications with them. Sure, use LinkedIn, but offer to schedule an offline conversation as well. So find out what they want. And no different than if you met somebody at a live networking event, you're going to pick up the conversation where you left off and figure out how they like to be communicated with. But a one-size-fits-all, hiding behind the computer just doesn't work. And it's not going to take us into the future. There's going to be a lot of broke business owners if they don't step away from technology, update their skills, modernize their approach, change their language, and find out how to sell in a way that honors everyone they get in front of. And boy, when they fix that, life and business is phenomenal.
Well, and the key is that that's not only a remote possibility. That's the goal. That's the expectation, to sell in a way that honors everybody involved. If that's not on the back of your business card, Liz, then you've got a new slogan, right? Sell in a way that honors everybody involved. Duh. But people, because of these long-held beliefs, because of these mental blocks, they think they've got to be Alec Baldwin. They think they've got to be greasy-haired Sal on the used car lot. You don't have to do that. I was one of those people, right? I mean, most people fall reluctantly into a sales career. They just decide it's a cool opportunity. They want to go that way. Or I guess I could go try to sell something. And they don't. You have that mindset is so vital to understand that not only do you not have to be what you think you have to be, but you also can be whatever you want it to be, or whatever you want to be.
You get to create that.
Absolutely. And why don't
the best job in the world?
It is. I call it, I get to control the financial faucet at all times. I'm in charge of that. But something I want to bring up, that the mindset. I hear people say, I don't sell, I serve. Oh, I'm not a salesperson. I like to just share, or I listen my way to a sale. When I hear that, I just want to pull my hair out, because that, first of all, when you share, when you serve, and when you listen, that's all part of the sales process. But you can't just sit back and listen. You have to listen, but you have to direct a conversation where it's flowing and it's genuine, and you're going somewhere. You can't just listen your way to a sale, or you can't just serve your way to a sale. You've got to sell something in order to truly serve someone. So when I hear people hide behind the, oh, I don't sell, I'm just authentic, or I just have conversations with people. You can do that, but again, you're going to be broke. There is a sales conversation that I use the analogy of when you go bowling and there's bumpers on each side. That's how a conversation goes. It's not linear. You have conversations with people that flow. They go back and forth. You have to know how to pull a conversation back on track. If it starts to go off to the right, you have to be able to pull it back center and keep that conversation flowing. So the end destination is what you're both looking for, whether it's a yes or a no, or let's talk next month. It moves in a manner where you're going somewhere. I see too many people going out for coffee, having lunch meetings, or doing virtual coffee, and it's a 30 or 40-minute phone conversation. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not robust and lively. And why are we talking? Why are we having a conversation?
What is the purpose of this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're on this call, but why are we talking? So having a loose agenda, having a direction and an end goal every time you send an email, pick up the phone, have coffee with someone. Why are we meeting, and what are we doing here? Because we spin our wheels too much by wasting time that way without having that end goal. But I tell people, you're not serving, you're not just listening, you are selling yourself and your services.
Yeah, I like that clarification. And I think, too, that passion can tend to push us off the tracks, right? So a lot of times, and Jeff and I have even found this in our conversations, right, is that we'll get really passionate about a topic, but if we're not careful, we'll go way off the reservation, right? And ultimately, we need to make sure we have a guideline so that we stay connected to our purpose. Doesn't take the passion away.
Right.
Means that we have to make sure that at the end there's some takeaway from the whole discussion.
And next steps, and where do we go from here? Do we continue our conversation? Do we never see each other again? But there's got to be something under the surface to even bother with someone and have that conversation, figuring out where are we going and what's our intention here.
Yeah. So Liz, one of the questions that we ask every guest that comes on our podcast is, what is your why? And we typically don't give any direction on how to answer that question. You can answer it any way you wish.
Okay.
So tell us, what is your why?
I would say just what's coming to me right now is that my why is to work to inspire and motivate people so they can do the work that inspires and motivates them. And they can do that in a way when it is collaborative, when you know you're coming from that place of, I'm not here to do something to you, I'm here to have a conversation with you. And if there's something there, we'll figure it out. But to inspire them to be able to step into that space where you may end up with a new client or a sale or not, but what you did to someone is you left them in a better place. They left saying to themselves, wow, she was really nice, or I really enjoyed our conversation. Maybe it ended with see you next month or never to do business with someone, but I inspired them or motivated them to do something different.
Love it.
I love it.
That passion comes through in everything you do, Liz. You look at your website, you look at your videos, you look at your writing. It's all very impassioned and very inspired, and I think that's why you're so good at what you do. I think that is why your clients are so loyal and speak so highly of you. And thanks for coming out and sharing some time with us today. I know there's some people that benefited from hearing you talk about what you're so passionate about and why you do it.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
happy to be on your 12th episode and to
Yes.
another couple of dozen more podcasts.
A lot more than a dozen, I'm sure.
Yes,
We'll see how
dozens
this
and
works
dozens.
out, right?
A whole gross of them.
A gross of them. Awesome.
And so everyone listening to the podcast, please do check the show notes. We'll have all of the ways to get in touch with Liz. And we'll certainly have a link out to a couple of the books that she's written as well. Jeff, any closing thoughts or...
Well, I think my thought, despite the fact that Liz says that technology is killing your business, she makes adequate use of it herself. This is not a stance that you should avoid technology, but I think like anything else, take a good hard look at it and see if you're utilizing it correctly. So if you want to...
Telephone is technology, but if you pick up the phone and you sound like an old school salesperson, you're not using the technology very well.
The interesting thing is that, no one wants to pick up the phone to call, but what is the one thing you make sure you never leave anywhere without? It's your phone. Right. You always have it on you, Right. So let's just avoid this thing that we know is probably the most sure way to reach somebody. But that's another discussion for another time.
That is another one. That's a good article right there.
That'll be episode number 24, Liz. We're having you
right.
back.
That's right. She's going to be a recurring dozen guest. Every dozen she's coming on.
You're on. I'll take it.
But if you'd like to get a hold of Liz, you can find her at lizwendling.com. You can find her on Twitter at Liz Wendling. She's also on Facebook and LinkedIn. Just make sure that if you reach out to her, you're prepared to get on the phone, because we don't have passionate conversations through keyboards. That's what I learned today.
That's good.
So thanks everybody for joining us today. Join us next week. We're going to talk about something exciting that at the moment is to be determined. So that's how we roll on here, around here.
That sounds great.
Christy, what do we tell people every week?
When you understand your why, your hows and your whats get a lot better.
Ooh.
Thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Going against the grain.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Why and the Buy podcast. If you liked us, subscribe. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, and really anywhere else you can get a podcast. And if you really liked us, then give us a 5-star review. We like those, and we like you too. Here at the Why and the Buy podcast, we've got our own house band. Christy and I think they're absolutely perfect for what we're trying to do with this podcast, and we hope you think so too. If you like them as much as we do, then you should check them out. They're called Haskins, and they're based in southeastern Michigan. You can find their music and more at haskinsmusic.com. Go check them out.
Going against the grain.